Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier sessions, we discussed about sections 28, 30, 31, 32, 32 AD, 35 of the Income Tax Act. And now, let us continue with some more sections under this head of PGBP, starting from 35 AD. 35 AD is also a little variety type of deduction, just like 35, wherein section 35 was more about deduction in respect of scientific research expenditure, whether it is capital or revenue, and also deduction for donations made to certain scientific research institutions and organizations. Those were all mentioned in 35. 35 AD is also a very unique section wherein the SC can claim a deduction in respect of capital expenditure also. So same like 35, here also the variety point is SC can claim a deduction on capital expenditure also. Not just revenue expenditure, SC can claim a deduction on capital expenditure also under section 35 AD. But when such capital expenditure is spent on a specified business, then only such capital expenditure can be allowed as deduction to the SSCs who are running specified businesses. So naturally the question comes, this entire section 35 AD is about remembering what is a specified business, that's all. And only new point, variety point here is, of course anyway revenue expenditure is always allowed as deduction, but in respect of capital expenditure of specified businesses, that is also allowed as deduction under section 35 AD. What are the specified businesses? You should remember this list. This list has to be by hearted in general. So it has to be remembered. What are those specified businesses? One is cold chain facility. Cold chain means for like kind of a huge freezer for storing the agricultural produce. So those are called cold chains or cold storages, we can call it. Cold storages are what popularly they are called. So if anybody builds a cold storage, that entire expenditure on the building of that cold storage can be claimed as deduction in one shot. 100% deduction of capital expenditure can be claimed on such business. Similarly, warehousing facility for storage of agricultural produce is another specified business. Hospital with at least 100 beds. This number has to be remembered. Minimum 100 bed hospital is a specified business. Same way, housing projects, affordable housing projects we can call, approved by CBDT, not any other, just like that apartments constructed, no, not like that. Affordable housing schemes which are approved by CBDT, those are considered as specified businesses. And production of fertilizer in India. So fertilizer manufacturing companies also are considered as specified business. There is nothing to understand or explain here. Main point is you need to remember this list of specified businesses. That's all. Cold storage, warehousing facility for agricultural produce storage, and hospitals with at least 100 beds. So that itself means small clinics, nursing homes and all, they will not get this benefit. Only big hospitals with at least 100 beds will get a benefit of full deduction of capital expenditure under section 35 AD. Affordable housing projects as approved by CBDT. For fertilizer manufacturing companies will get this benefit also, and so many other big James Bond level things are there, but we don't need to really worry about them, just remember them enough. Cross country to country, natural gas and crude oil or petroleum or oil pipeline network for distribution, including storage facilities being an integral part of such network, those will be eligible for full capital expenditure deduction. And we are talking about cross-country pipelines for storage or distribution of natural gas, crude or petroleum or even gas. So all of them will be considered as specified businesses. If any investment is done on that on capital expenditure, that can be claimed as deduction under 35 AD. Same way hotel. Hotel is different, restaurant is different. First of all, we should know that hotel means a place where people stay. So like a lodging facility. In US and all, it is called motel. We call it hotel here. But usage wise, a lot of people call even restaurants as hotels. So somebody will tell, I went to a hotel and had some food. It's okay, that's like a colloquial usage. But here, when we say hotel, we are talking about definitely a staying facility, a lodging facility. But not any Tom, Dick, and Harry hotel. It should be at least 2-star and above category. So naturally, 3-star, 4-star, 2-star, 5-star, all of them are eligible for 35 AD benefit. Same way, slum redevelopment or rehabilitation program, something like shown in Kala movie, like that. If any slum redevelopment or rehabilitation programs are there, those are eligible for 35 AD. Beekeeping and production of honey and beeswax, whatever it is. Once again, simply speaking, bee cultivation and honey manufacturing from those bees. That's also a specified business. So why this is all allowed as deduction under 35 AD? Naturally, to encourage these businesses. Infrastructure development in India has always been one of the priorities of the government. And by the way, this is not some 35 AD freshly introduced now. This was there since a long time. It's a different story how many people really use the benefit, how much of infrastructure has improved. Definitely over a period of time, these incentives, tax benefits will give little bit of motivation to people to invest in those areas. That is the purpose of full deduction in 1 year. For a normal person, any other normal businessman, for any capital expenditure, they can get a deduction over a period of time called depreciation. But for these specified businesses, one shot, 100% deduction they can claim on the capital expenditure. That is the benefit that is given to all these businesses called as specified businesses. And you need to remember this list, there is no option. And you have to remember them exactly. So when you say warehousing facility for storage of agricultural produce only, anything else will not be eligible for 35 AD. Same way, setting up and operating warehousing facility for storage of sugar, that is there in point number 10. So point number 2 is for agricultural produce, point number 10 is for sugar storage, naturally, because warehousing is after all for storage. And 11th one is also something very highly technical, laying and operating a slurry pipeline for the transportation of iron ore. So it seems that iron ore also is transported through pipelines. If anybody does that pipeline network building, they will get benefit under 35 AD. Same way, setting up and operating a semiconductor wafer fabrication manufacturing unit. Once again, we don't need to know what is that. We are not electrical engineers nor electronic engineers. We don't need to know that. What is a semiconductor, how they are fabricated, all these things. What is wafer fabrication? Is it related to the chocolate wafer, what we eat? No, that is different. This is definitely something related to chips, not the eating chips, the computer chips or mobile chips. So something related to electronics, definitely yes. But remember the names enough. Semiconductor wafer fabrication manufacturing unit. To develop manufacturing facilities of hardware industry also in India, this facility is given to them. And not just assembly. We are talking about semiconductor wafer fabrication manufacturing unit. That's a manufacturing unit. Then 13th one says setting up and operating of an inland container depot. ICD it is called, or container freight station. Remember them. ICD or container freight station as notified under the Customs Act. So if somebody builds such things like an inland container depot or a container freight station, what are those things? Those are the places where the imported or to be exported containers are all kept for customs verification, and they will be taken out from that ICD separately. In most of the movies we see them in climax scenes where the fight will actually happen in front of the containers. And where are all those containers? Is that port? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes that containers may be very far from the port or airport. That place where those are all containers stored is called as inland container depot. In a recent TV series called Arya, I think in one of the episodes it was clearly shown inland container depot. They try to move the containers and do some smuggling activity and all. Yeah, those are all different things that keep on happening in real life. We don't need to worry about them. None of our business. We are not customs officers, nor do we know Customs Act now, which we will learn at final level. But right now what we should remember, There is something called inland container depot. What is a bus depot? Where all the buses will stay. What is the inland container depot? Where all the containers will stay. That's all. That's what is inland container depot. If somebody builds that, that's also a very important infrastructural facility, particularly in the import and export arena. So that will be eligible for 35AD full deduction. Same way, if anybody is in the business of developing or maintaining and operating, or developing, maintaining and operating a new infrastructure facility, it's a very open-ended thing. Lot of conditions will be there, so don't seriously worry about this. New infrastructure facility is just the word that you should remember, and if it is given in the question itself will tell the SC is eligible for 35AD. That you should know. What is 35AD? You should know. But all the other businesses, not necessarily the question will tell it is eligible for 35AD. We should remember most of them, if not all of them. Particularly, whatever we can understand normally also we can definitely remember. For example, a hotel. Yes, it's very simple to understand. But what kind of hotel? At least 2-star and above. Hospital, at least with 100 beds. Those two we should remember. Warehousing facility. For what? For two things. One is agricultural produce, two is sugar. Done. Cold storage facility. Available. Fertilizer manufacturers. Available. 35AD is available. Other things are all different once again. Honey manufacturing, beekeeping, beeswax manufacturing, all different things. And all other things like cross-country, natural gas, pipelines, big things. You know, like laying a slurry pipeline for transportation of iron ore, semiconductor wafer fabrication manufacturing unit. These are all big things. Infrastructure facility, new things which are all not particularly required to be remembered. General remembrance is enough for that. Remaining other things you have to remember, like affordable housing scheme. These are all simple things that you can easily remember. So these are the 14 different businesses which are notified in the Income Tax Act under Section 35AD as specified businesses. And what is the speciality ultimately? The speciality is that they get a 100% deduction of capital expenditure incurred during the previous year in all the above cases. That is the variety, that is the benefit that these businesses will get under Section 35AD. Of course, there are some conditions, and the specified business should be a new business. It should not be something which is just formed out of an existing business. It should be a new business, not formed out of demerger or splitting off of an existing business. No, it should be fresh business. Second thing is, though it is new business, up to 20% old machinery is permitted. Conditions only. Up to 20% old machinery is permitted. To that extent, it's okay. And look at another variety, very important point here. This is where people will be mixing the things up with provisions. Second hand imported machine from outside India will be treated as new machinery for 35AD. The same thing is not treated as a new machinery for additional depreciation or for 32AD, which we discussed earlier. For additional depreciation or 32AD allowance, second hand machinery imported from outside India is not treated as new machinery. Second hand is second hand. But here, look at the very important variety point. Even if, for example, the SSC imports a machinery which was used outside India already, now he is importing, still it will be considered as if it is a new machinery. Very important twist point. And this is not everywhere. Only for 35AD, this second hand machinery, though it is second hand, will be treated as new machinery, of course, if it is imported from outside India. Same way, another relaxation also is given. Though the business is supposed to be new business, still 20% transfer of old machinery is permissible. That's not a problem. Of course, the books of accounts of the SC shall be audited. Naturally, that will be always there. But look at the other very important conditions. Expenditure for land is not available. Goodwill or financial instruments is not available. If by setting up new business, if somebody pays for goodwill to somebody else, he paid really, he incurred expenditure, but that is not eligible for 35AD. So 35AD deduction is not available for three different capital expenses. What are those? Land, goodwill or financial instruments. Means buying the shares of another company is not a capital expenditure. No, that is not what is eligible for 35AD. Otherwise, what happens? Let us say if there is a cold storage facility already, I buy the shares of cold storage facility and say that I have established it by changing a name or brand name. No, you did not establish it, you just bought the shares. That is not considered as investment. These investments, popularly, we can call these things as greenfield investments, not brownfield investments. Means they should be newly formed, not by just changing hands of shareholding from one person to another person. If that happens, let it happen. Nobody is going to stop that. But that is not eligible for 35AD, that's all. So 35AD capital expenditure deduction is not available for three types of purchase of assets. What are the three assets? Land, goodwill and financial instruments. That is first point. And very important point, another one also is that expenditure prior to the commencement of operations for the specified business is allowed in the previous year in which the operations have started. One more observation you can make. Similar thing was there in section 35 also, but in 35 they have mentioned a time period. Expenditure incurred 3 years prior to the commencement of business is allowed as deduction in the year of commencement of business. And by the way, that was eligible for in section 35 for both capital and revenue expenditure. But that is not the case with 35AD. Observe each provision separately and very carefully. 35AD, we are talking about expenditure which is prior to the commencement of operation for specified business. No mention of 3 years is there. How many number of years back? Prior to the commencement of specified business, if any expenditure is made, that shall be allowed as deduction in the previous year in which such operations have started. That is also another important point. Of course, normally there will not be that much time period, practically speaking, but technical differences we have to identify. There was a 3 years restriction in 35. No such restriction is mentioned in 35AD. So we have to interpret that there is no restriction like that. When there is nothing mentioned, as simple as that. We cannot assume things. Because it was there in 35, I will apply it in 35AD also. How can you apply? 35 was a different section, 35AD is a different section. We cannot apply that. So, that is one more facility given for specified businesses. And naturally, once they claim already deduction under this section 35AD, can they claim deduction under any other sections of the Act? Not possible, right? In other words, can they claim depreciation also on this? Definitely not possible. That doesn't make sense. No other deduction can be claimed once already a deduction has been claimed under section 35AD. Common sense point. Another point is always there. This is also common point, always there. If any expenditure is made by paying more than 10,000 rupees per day to a person, then such expenditure shall not be eligible for deduction if it is paid by any modes other than by way of account pay bank draft, account pay check or account pay bank draft or electronic clearing systems or ECS. Then only. Simply speaking, banking channels. All these big words we don't need to use. If the payment is made by banking channels, it is okay. If the payment is made by other than banking channels, more than 10,000 rupees a day to a person, such expenditure is ineligible, disallowed, not eligible for section 35AD deduction at all. One more striking factor you can observe. Was there a similar restriction in section 35 also? There was no such particular restriction in section 35 specifically. That was there in 32 it was there. In fact, almost everywhere it is there. Wherever there is a deduction that is given, amount cannot be paid more than 10,000 rupees in cash to one person in one day. So, in 32 it was there. No depreciation can be claimed. In other words, actual cost, while calculating actual cost itself, which was actually 43.1, that itself, this amount would be excluded before going for depreciation and all. While calculating actual cost itself, if any amount of more than 10,000 rupees per day per person is paid in cash, that would have been excluded. That would not have been not included in actual cost for the purpose of calculating depreciation. Same logic applies here also. In case of 35 AD, if any payment is made for one person in a day, more than 10,000 rupees, exceeding is the word, exactly 10,000, no problem. Exceeding 10,000 rupees by modes other than banking channels, then such expenditure is not allowed as deduction. Simple. That is one more important point under 35 AD. And one more point is also there, like we have 5 years restriction for 35. Here for 35 AD assets, the restriction is for 8 years. Means if once a deduction is claimed under this section and within 8 years if the assets are transferred, then whatever deduction available earlier now shall become taxable as PGBP. Of course, for all those years of usage, that SSC will be eligible for depreciation. When 35 AD is not allowed, 32 will be definitely allowed. But remaining amount shall definitely become taxable as PGBP. But when, if any asset which has already claimed the deduction under section 35 AD has been transferred within 8 years of its purchase. That's it. These are the various conditions and types of businesses which are called as specified businesses under section 35 AD. The capital expenditure incurred on them is 100% allowed as deduction in the previous year in which it is incurred. Also, if that capital expenditure is related to prior to the commencement of business, that also is allowed as deduction in the year in which the business has actually commenced. And 10,000 rupees restriction is always there here also. And once a deduction under 35 AD is claimed, no further deduction can be claimed under other provisions of the Income Tax Act. And if the asset so claimed, which has so claimed deduction under 35 AD has been transferred within 8 years of its acquisition, then the earlier availed deduction shall become taxable as PGBP. That will be deemed to be the income under the head of PGBP. Why? Because earlier deduction was claimed under PGBP. In the same logic, now condition reversed means taxability also happens under PGBP naturally. That's it. That is about 35 AD. Now let us look at some of the questions related to section 35 AD application. Mr. A commenced operations of the businesses of setting up of a warehousing facility for storage of food grains, sugar and edible oil. We have to first of all be clear. Food grains, is it okay or not? Agricultural produce. Yes, it is 35 AD business. Sugar is okay or not? Yes, it is already there in 35 AD. Edible oil is not there. Warehousing facility for edible oil is not there. Edible oil is a processed food. It is not oil seeds. If oil seeds were stored, that is okay. But if it is a warehousing facility for storage of edible oil, oil is already a manufactured item. That is not a specified business. First of all, that we should identify from the question itself. This is not a specified business. Okay, these two are specified businesses, no problem. Two different businesses, but still that's okay. He has warehousing facility for 3 of them separately. When he has started, our beginning of previous year, okay. He incurred capital expenditure of 80, 60 and 50 lakhs respectively. Means in the same sequence. 80 lakhs for food grains, 60 for sugar, 50 for edible oil. On purchase of land and building during the period January 2019 to March 2019, exclusively for the above businesses, and capitalized the same in its books of accounts as on 1st April 2019. Whatever he has done doesn't matter. 35 AD gives a facility of claiming a capital expenditure deduction if it was incurred prior to the commencement of business. Of course, that is only for specified businesses, not for everything else. So, whatever this edible oil business is there, this 50 lakhs is not going to be eligible for 35 AD. It will be eligible for a depreciation, we will see that. So that 50 lakhs is edible oil related to, look at the expenditure for what? Land and building. Of course, land should not be included. Land is never eligible for deduction. Whether it is 35 or 35 AD or 32, never land is eligible for any deduction. So that has to be excluded. That is given already. The cost of land included in the above figures is 50, 40 and 30 lakhs respectively. So now let us get one by one what are the building costs only, the capital expenditures only. Food grains business, let us take it as sugar business and oil business, let us say. So food grains business 80 was land and buildings, included in that was 50 lakhs land. So that means building is only how much for food grains business? That is only 30 lakhs. For sugar business, land and building 60 lakhs, included in that is 40 lakhs land. Naturally 20 lakhs is only building. Then for oil business, oil business, 50 lakhs was total expenditure on land and building. In that 30 lakhs is land only. So how much will be the remaining amount? 20 lakhs. So the building only is eligible for depreciation, land is not eligible for depreciation. Of course, if the value of the land and building cannot be separated, that is a different story. Since it is given separately, we cannot provide depreciation on land, we have to provide depreciation only on building portion of this edible oil business. That comes to 20 lakhs. Fine. During the previous year 1920, that is our previous year, he incurred a capital expenditure of 20, 15 and 10 lakhs respectively for extension or reconstruction of the building that was purchased and used exclusively for the above businesses. So he has incurred furthermore capital expenditure for original food grains business, 30 anyway was incurred capital expenditure, plus now further how much capital expenditure is incurred? 20 is incurred. Same way for sugar storage, originally 20 lakhs, now 15 lakhs is incurred. For oil seeds storage or edible oil storage, oil seeds would have been agricultural produce. Edible oil storage, it is not a specified business, but of course it will be eligible for depreciation, no problem. How much is the additional capital expenditure on building on this? 10 lakhs. That's it. Now the question is, compute the income under the head PGBP for the assessment year 2021 and the loss to be carried forward, assuming that Mr. A has fulfilled all conditions specified for claim of deduction under 35 AD and he did not claim any deduction under chapter 6A, blah blah blah, whatever things they are there. 35 AD is eligible, but not all businesses, only 2 businesses naturally. But what are the profits from the business of setting up of a warehousing facility for storage of food grains, sugar and edible oil before claiming deduction under 35 AD and 32? So 35 AD for these two, food grains and sugar, and 32 for edible oil naturally. Before claiming the deduction, the profits are like this: 16 lakhs, 14 lakhs and 31 lakhs respectively. Also assume in respect of expenditure incurred, the payments made by account pay check or use of ECS through bank account, so that we don't have to disallow it. That was the question. So the point is, in case of the warehousing facility for food grains, the total capital expenditure incurred was 50 lakhs. In case of sugar, the total capital expenditure incurred was 35 lakhs current year, and even expenditure incurred prior to the commencement of business, so total 85 lakhs. Both are specified businesses. What was the profit coming from them? That is 16 lakhs and 14 lakhs, coming to total of 30 lakhs, right? So 30 lakhs profit, 100% allowed as deduction. Put together, we are just mixing them. 85 lakhs total expenditure allowed as deduction, which means loss, PGBP loss from these 2 businesses will be 55 lakhs. In exam I have to show separately for food grains business and sugar business. Not food grain business actually, warehousing facility for storage of food grains. Same way, warehousing facility for storage of sugar. We are just using those words for reference purposes. So 50 lakhs, 35 lakhs capital expenditure can be claimed under 35 AD, since profits are 16 and 14 lakhs, total of 30 minus 85. 55 lakhs is the loss from specified business. Then what about the other thing, that is oil seeds storage? 30 lakhs cannot be claimed as deduction under 35 AD because it is not a specified business, but it is eligible for depreciation naturally. And what is the depreciation here? We are talking building, right? Building means depreciation will be how much? That will be 10% naturally, because it is a industrial building, storage building, commercial building, not a residential building, so 10%, which means 3 lakhs is eligible for depreciation. Then what was the actual profit before claiming deduction under section 32 from that business? Was 31 lakhs. So how much will be the taxable amount? 31 lakhs profit before depreciation minus 3 lakhs, which means 28 lakhs is going to be the profit from the warehousing facility for storage of edible oil. So far it's okay. But now the question comes, can this 55 and 28 be set off? Of course we'll see that later, but because the topic has come, now itself we can remember, we know the new provision now. No, they cannot be set off. So what is the set off provision here related to specified business is, the loss from specified business can be set off only against the profits of another specified business. It cannot be set off against the profits of normal business. But reverse is okay. For example, if there is a loss from non-specified business, that can be set off against profits of specified business. But loss of specified business cannot be set off against the profits of non-specified business. So what to do with this 55 lakhs? We have to just carry forward and wait till the year when the profits will come from another specified business, not necessarily same business. Specified business is enough. So 55 lakhs has to be carried forward. That's what he has asked here also. What is the loss to be carried forward? Answer is 55 lakhs. What is the taxable income under PGBP? That is 28 lakhs. This is profit which is taxable in the current year. 55 lakhs is loss which cannot be set off against this 28 lakhs. So there is no option, that has to be carried forward to the forthcoming years. That's all. That is about one of the examples of application of 35 AD. Another example is given in ICA material, that is Mr. Suraj, a proprietor, commenced operations of the business of a new 3-star hotel in Madurai. So first of all, 3-star hotel is a specified business because it's more than 2-star. At the beginning of the year, he incurred a capital expenditure of 50 lakhs during January to March exclusively for the above business and capitalized the same in his books of accounts as on 1st April 2019. Further, during the previous year, 1920, he incurred capital expenditure of 2 crores, out of which 1.5 crores was for acquisition of land only. That means how much is for others? Capital expenditure 50 lakhs. So already prior to commencement of business, he incurred 50 lakhs, which is also allowed as reduction. And during the previous year also, he incurred 50 lakhs, which is allowed as reduction. 1.5 crores is not considered for 35 AD. That should be ignored. So how much is the total capital expenditure that can be claimed as reduction under 35 AD? 100 lakhs, that is 1 crore. Compute the income under the head PGBP for the assessment year 2021, assuming he has fulfilled all conditions, blah blah blah. Then, third paragraph says the profits from business of running this hotel before claiming deduction under 35 AD was 25 lakhs. So that is a profit. So profit is there 25 lakhs, simple logic. And deduction is there 100. How much is loss? That is 75 lakhs loss from this particular hotel, that is 3-star hotel at Madurai. Assume that he also has another existing business of running a 4-star hotel in Coimbatore. So that is also a specified business, right? Which commenced operations 12 years back. That we don't care. Whenever it commenced operation, 4-star hotel is also a specified business. Any hotel 2-star or more is a specified business. And profits from that were how much? 120 lakhs. Now the question is, can these profits and the loss from other specified business be set off? Now the answer is yes. Why? Because both are specified businesses. So the losses from specified business can be set off against the profits of another specified business. In this case, there is another specified business in the form of a 4-star hotel in Coimbatore. Those profits can be used for setting off the losses of the 3-star hotel at Madurai. So ultimately, what is going to be the taxable amount? Of course, assuming always all amounts are paid by account by check or ECS. That's okay. 25 plus 20, the final PGBP, that is taxable. This is taxable amount of PGBP will be how much? For this particular SSE, 45 lakhs. That's it. And I am just once again reminding you, for Income Tax Act, the assessment happens to the SSE, not to the business. Madurai hotel assessment, Coimbatore hotel assessment will not happen. No. Income tax assessment happens for SSE. If one SSE holds 100 businesses also, ultimately his assessment is only 1. That has to be always kept in mind. So that is another point to be noted. That is related to 2 different situations. Both cases, those were individuals only. So if they were having another specified business, then the loss from one specified business could have been set off, which was not the case in first scenario. That is why the loss could not be set off. It had to be carried forward to the future years. But in the second case, since both are specified businesses, the loss from one specified business can be set off against the profits of other specified business. In this case, that is why PGBP would be 45 lakhs. Now, look at another situation here. Mr. Arnav is a proprietor having 2 units. Okay, that is unit A carries on a specified business of setting up and operating a warehousing facility for storage of sugar. And Unit B carries a non-specified business of operating a warehousing facility for storage of edible oil. So he has two businesses. But Unit A commenced the operations on 1/4/2018, long back, and claimed a deduction of 100 lakhs rupees incurred on purchase of two buildings for 50 lakhs each for operating a warehousing facility for storage of sugar under 35 AD for assessment year 1920, which was not our assessment year, earlier is our assessment year. That was all there already in Unit A. Means already he claimed a deduction of how much? 100 lakhs on this Unit A buildings under section 35 AD. Then in February 2020, Unit A transferred one of its buildings, one, not both, one of its buildings to Unit B. Just now we saw assessment happens for individual SSE. If he may have different businesses, so can he transfer the assets from a specified business to a non-specified business just like that because SSE is same? No, sir. That is not the purpose why you were given deduction earlier. You cannot transfer. Even though it is within the same SSE's name. The assets cannot be transferred from specified business to a non-specified business. If that happens within 8 years, naturally what should happen? Whatever deduction which was given earlier now shall become taxable. But of course, here 50 lakhs is only the deduction related to one building because transfer happened only of one building. One building only transferred means 50 lakhs only will be taxable. But once again, 50 lakhs cannot be directly taken. Why? Because though now this 50 lakhs will become taxable, since 35 AD is reversed, for the year when it was used, the building was used, the SSE will be eligible for depreciation because he commenced operations in 1/4/2018. That means 18-19 year. Depreciation the building is eligible, right? For the full year naturally. 50 lakhs 10% means 5 lakhs depreciation is available. That will be available. So how much will be actually taxable now? 45 lakhs will be taxable in the hands of Mr. Arnav in the assessment year 2021 or previous year 1920. Because the transfer happened in the previous year 1920, 45 lakhs will become taxable in the hands of Mr. Arnav. Whatever earlier allowed as deduction now became taxable. But to be fair, the asset should be eligible for depreciation when there is no 35 AD. So depreciation has to be provided, remaining amount becomes taxable. Of course, what happens to Unit B? Unit B will start providing depreciation on this 45 lakhs going forward naturally because Unit B now has this asset at what price? 45 lakhs. Though there is no just cash transfer, but already that is a amount which after the deduction of eligible depreciation for 1 year, that is the amount which already was taxed in the hands of the SSE. So that becomes what? The same amount becomes the actual cost of the asset for Unit B, and of course that will be eligible to claim depreciation over a period of time like 10%, 10%, 10% like that. So the story continues. Ultimately the SSE has incurred 50 lakhs. He will get deduction for that 50 lakhs in his life. When and all is a different story. If it was a 35 AD unit, then he would have got deduction which he claimed also in one shot, 1 year itself, 100% deduction he would have got. But once that its condition is reversed, if he has transferred the unit, if he has transferred the asset from a specified business to a non-specified business, he has violated the conditions. That means the amount will become taxable now. But to what extent it will be taxable? To the extent it exceeds the depreciation that should have been claimed on that asset, it becomes taxable. And that becomes the actual cost for the transferee. That is also as Arnav only, but Unit B. And what happens to Unit B going forward? It will provide depreciation like this, 10%, 10% for infinite period because it is a WDV method. But end of the day, that will not be eligible for 35 AD for sure. It will be only eligible for section 32. That is the tax implications in the hands of Mr. Arnav. That was what was asked in that question. That is about 35 AD, very, very important provision also after section 35. The specified business capital expenditure allowed as deduction 100% in the year in which it is incurred, and also the expenditure incurred prior to the commencement of business also is eligible in the year of commencement of business. That is 35 AD and different examples applying 35 AD. Now in this 35 series, there are some other three different small things which you have to just by heart once again, nothing special to explain here. What are those things? If the SSC pays to any associations and institutions for carrying what? Rural development programs, this is what you should remember, or urban poverty eradication. So what are the funds here? The names you can remember. National Fund, not nation, National Fund for Rural Development or National Urban Poverty Eradication Fund. Remember these two funds. If SSC donates, simply speaking, if he contributes some amount to that, 100% deduction he'll claim, he'll get. Sir, will that be related to business? How come rural development and urban poverty eradication will be related to business? That is a charity, simply speaking. But those are the funds set up by the government. So somewhere in the BGBP they gave a deduction of 100%. What is the variety in that? Variety is, it is allowed as deduction even though that expenditure is not related to the business. For that purpose, there was a section required, that is section 35 CCA. So 100% deduction is allowed for contributions or payments made to National Fund for Rural Development or National Urban Poverty Eradication Fund. That's it. Then 35 CCC and CCD are there. They are eligible for 150% deduction. Related to what? Once again, you have to remember these names. Related to what? The expenditure for notified agricultural extension projects. What is that? We don't care. Agricultural extension projects is what you should just remember. Enough. We cannot go into each and every word of PGBP. If we do that, entire life is not enough. Actually, that many things will be there in reality. We don't need that. For exam point of view, some deduction is given for what? Agricultural extension project. Any agricultural extension project. I have a house and in the backyard I am having some small agricultural activity. I have extension project. Can we call that? No, sir. Not like that. There is a lot of procedure for that. Means notified agricultural extension projects only. What are notified? They will be given in the question. If it is notified, then only it is allowed as deduction. Not notified, no deduction. So weighted deduction for expenditure for notified agricultural extension project, how much is that? 150%. Same way, deduction for expenditure related to notified skill development projects. What are the skill development projects? We don't care. Government will notify them. CBDT will notify them. According to that, SSCs, whoever incurs the expenditure in those notified skill development projects, they will get 150% deduction. Our job is to just remember the names and amount of deduction. If the donation or contribution or payment is made to National Fund for Rural Development or Urban Poverty Eradication Fund, only 100% deduction is given, though it is not related to business. That is a variety. But 150% deduction is given in relation to the expenditure, not just payment or contribution, expenditure for notified agricultural extension projects or expenditure in relation to the notified skill development projects. 150% of such expenditure will be allowed as deduction. 35 CCA, CCC and CCD are just name wise you have to remember, but they are not namesake. You have to remember those names. Memory definitely is important when such provisions are there. That's it. That is 35 AD, 35 CCA, CCC and CCD. Now in this 35 series, let us continue with section 35D. That is also very important section, and definite questions point can be there in the bigger question related to PGBP. To whom it is applicable? Indian company or a resident non-corporate SSE. That means any resident we can say. Indian company or a resident non-corporate SSE. Anybody will be able to claim deduction under section 35D. What should be the expenditure? Before commencement of business, the expenditure should be related to setting up of the business. If it is after commencement of business, the preliminary expenditure sometimes can be even incurred for extension or setting up of new undertaking. For example, already one business is there which has 100 branches. They want to start 101st branch. For that also they might incur some preliminary expenditure before setting up that new branch, before that expansion, before that extension, before setting up that new undertaking. Yes, there will be preliminary expenses. that will be eligible for a deduction under section 35D. So not necessarily that preliminary expenses means always they have to be incurred before setting up of the business. Not necessary. Even existing businesses can claim also, but when that business has invested in an expansion or setting up of a new undertaking, then preliminary expenses under 35D can be claimed as deduction. One point can come, so what is the variety? Why do we need it? They are anyway allowed, right? No, they are not anyway allowed. You have to go back to the basic principles. Any expenditure incurred prior to the setting up of business normally is not allowed. That is why we needed a separate provision for it. 35D allows it. So preliminary expenditure is also like that. Expenditure incurred prior to the setting up of business also is allowed as deduction under section 35D. But what type of expenditure? Not any expenditure. Not any expenditure. Expenditure should be related to these things. You don't need to by heart this list. No need of that. No need of that. When it is needed, you by heart it. When it is not needed, don't by heart it. Not required. All of them are called preliminary expenses. You can just understand from common sense perspective. What could be the preliminary expenses normally for setting up of business or for expansion? Preparation of a feasibility report, project report, conducting a market survey, engineering services related to the business of SSE, legal charges for drafting and printing memorandum of association, articles of association, company registration fees, expenses for public issue of shares or debentures of the company, underwriting commission, brokerage and charges for drafting, typing, printing and advertisement of prospectus. All of them with common sense also we can understand are preliminary expenses. Of course, yes. They are all incurred prior to setting up of business normally. Yes. So those are eligible for deduction under 35D. But the question comes, are they eligible for deduction full amount? No, they are not. Amount of deduction is only 1/5 of the preliminary expenses is allowed as deduction. Like this for 5 years. Don't think only one shot. It will be eligible for 5 equal annual installments. If preliminary expenses are incurred, let us say 1 lakh rupees, in the year of commencement of business 20,000, later 4 more years 20,000, 20,000, 20,000, like that. Total 5 years it will be allowed as deduction. So in 1 year, because we are going to calculate only for 1 year, if at all there is a preliminary expenditure debited to the P&L 1 lakh rupees, we cannot say that 1 lakh is entirely allowed as deduction as per Income Tax Act. As per accounts it can be written off actually, no problem. No bar is there on that. But Income Tax Act says no, you cannot write off entire preliminary expenses in one shot. You do it installment wise, year after year. How much? How many years like that? 5 years you do it. That means in 1 year how much deduction I will get? 1/5. Naturally, yes. Same like pre-construction period interest you can consider for understanding purposes. There is no relation between that and this. But understanding purposes, the law is looking at the such type of expenses as capital expenses, or we can call them as deferred revenue expenses, though the law never used that word. But since those are considered to be deferred revenue expenses, the law is not giving one-shot deduction. Rather, it is giving a deduction in installments. In this case also, 5 equal installments, the entire preliminary expenses can be claimed as deduction. But the law did not stop there. It has further put certain conditions. What are the conditions? The total of preliminary expenses cannot exceed how much? 5% of the cost of project or 5% of the capital employed, whichever is more. For whom? For corporate SSE. Corporate SSE means we are talking about company, naturally. For companies, 5% of cost of project or 5% of capital employed, whichever is higher, is going to be the maximum amount of preliminary expenses that is restricted to. But that amount is not allowed as deduction. Once it is restricted to that amount, 1/5 of that is allowed as deduction. For example, just for understanding purposes, say cost of project is 1 crore, 5% of cost of project is naturally 5 lakhs. Okay? But actual preliminary expenses incurred are 6 lakhs. Imagine, for example and understanding purposes. If there are actual preliminary expenses incurred 6 lakhs, then can we get 1/5 of 6 lakhs? No, we cannot. We can get only 1/5 of 5 lakhs. That means 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, like that for 5 years, that can be claimed as reduction. So we need to understand this carefully. This is a restriction on the preliminary expenses, not a restriction on the deduction directly. Once preliminary expenses which is possible to be claimed as deduction is calculated, then the amount of deduction is always 1/5 of that only. That is different. So restriction here is on what? The amount of preliminary expenses itself, which cannot exceed 5% of cost of project or 5% of capital employed, whichever is higher, whichever is more. That is for corporate SSEs. What about non-corporate SSEs? Non-corporate SSEs, 5% of cost of project only, because we don't have to worry about capital employed for those people. So that is about restriction on how much can be the total amount of preliminary expenses. So naturally, question comes up, what is cost of project? What is capital employed? We'll come to that. But first remember the provision. You need to find out cost of project in case of non-corporate SSE. In general, our case will be non-corporate SSE if it is a bigger question. But if it is MCQ, SSE could be anybody. So if 35D is asked as an MCQ for a corporate SSE, you have to calculate both. 5% of capital employed and 5% of cost of project, whichever is higher is the restriction. On that, 1/5 is given as deduction. By the way, this is upper limit, not a minimum amount or not a guaranteed amount of deduction. Don't assume things like that. Imagine in our earlier example, cost of project was 1 crore and the preliminary expenses permitted by law are 5 lakhs. Actual expenses are only 2 lakhs. So we'll get 5 lakhs by 5. No, why will we get 5 lakhs by 5? We'll get only 2 lakhs by 5. So the amount here given as upper limit, we cannot consider it as a flat amount of deduction. No, it is not. And out of these two, whichever is higher has to be considered as the upper limit for preliminary expenses that can be incurred, that can be eligible for a deduction, not a deduction directly, eligible for a deduction. Once that is found out, 1/5 of that eligible deduction will be given under 35D. That's it. That is about preliminary expenses. And a common sense point also comes here, which is there in the note. This can be just understood. Let us say, because we are talking about 5 years and all, after 2 years, the company got amalgamated with another company. So they got a deduction for 2 years. Preliminary expenses they incurred. In our example, let us say 1 lakh, like that. 2 years they have deducted. After some time, that company got amalgamated or demerged. Something happened. So what should happen? The remaining 3 years will lapse or what? Does it make sense? No, it will not lapse. The remaining 3 installments can be claimed by the successor, naturally. That's what is given in the note. In case of amalgamation or demerger of the company, deduction for remaining installments can be claimed by the new company from the year of amalgamation or demerger onwards. That's again a logical point. Because law gave 5 deductions, 5 equal installments. If the company has been reorganized in the middle of 5 years, the successor will definitely have the eligibility to claim this deduction for the remaining installments. No problem in that. That is about section 35D. That is not directly a deduction. We can call that as amortization of preliminary expenses in 5 equal annual installments. And naturally the question will be always coming, what is cost of project? Cost of project is what? Capital employed is what? See, cost of project is nothing but always the actual cost of fixed assets, whatever those are, on the last day of the previous year in which the business commences. That is what is cost of project. So whatever the total cost of fixed asset, actual cost, not after depreciation and all, actual cost of the fixed assets as on the last day of the previous year in which the business commences, that is called as cost of project. What if this expansion happened? If expansion happened, always the same thing will be there. Cost of project means the actual cost of fixed assets on the last day of the previous year in which the extension of the undertaking is completed, insofar as such assets have been acquired in connection with that extension of the undertaking or setting up of the new unit. Means to the extent the balance sheet size has increased as with the additional actual cost of the assets which are acquired for the purpose of expansion, to that extent it will be called as cost of projects. We don't need to worry about these things too much because they will be given in the question. As far as cost of project is concerned, it is nothing but the total of the fixed assets value, which is actual cost of the fixed assets, not at the time of commencement of business, on the last day of the previous year in which the business commences. That is the only important point. In case of existing business, you don't need to worry too much because always it has to be proportionate amount, whether it is cost of project also, capital employed also, it has to be calculated proportionately insofar as that relates to the extension of business or setting up of a new undertaking. To whatever extent that is related to the setting up of new undertaking, that much only will be taken as cost of project or capital employed. So this bottom portion is just looking at this word insofar as that relates to or is in connection with extension of business. That is a common point. The main point is this. What is basically cost of project? That is the actual cost of fixed assets prevailing on the last day of the previous year in which the business has commenced. Now, capital employed is very important. This can be asked for us to be calculated. So, what is capital employed? It is a total of issued capital. Share capital is a word used. Share capital includes equity share capital also, preference share capital also. Debentures also, yes. Long-term borrowings, not short-term. Bank overdraft, short-term loans, no. Long-term borrowings, equity share capital, preference share capital, debentures, which are existing on the last day of the previous year in which the business commences, that is called capital employed. Same way, if it is for extension of business, whatever the new capital that has been issued in the way of share capital or debentures or borrowings, insofar as that new raising of capital has been in connection with the extension of business. So, capital employed means the share capital plus debentures plus long-term borrowings, simply speaking, that you should remember. Cost of project means the total actual cost of fixed assets prevailing at the last day of the previous year in which the business commences. Once we have that, 5% of them will be eligible for deduction, not exactly the deduction. Then compare that 5% with the actual expenditure. Whichever is lower will be eligible for deduction, that too in 5 equal annual installments. That is the essence of 35D. That is one more section in the 35 series. And the last section in 35 series can be this, that is 35DDA, general section, logical section, nothing special to remember here. Expenditure by way of sum paid to employees in connection with voluntary retirement. We know already voluntary retirement scheme, VRS. And for employees, what was the taxability and all we discussed in the head of income, salaries. Now, whatever was income for employee naturally will become expenditure for employer. No? That should be deductible, right? Of course, it is deductible. But since these amounts are very big amounts, generally, what the law said, no, Baba, you cannot claim one-shot deduction. You have to claim in 5 equal annual installments. That's all. You cannot ask why and all. It is law. When the law says 5 installments, it is 5 installments. That's it. So, whenever they think that the profits can be decreased and the tax saving can happen to the SSEs, they try to postpone that. Nobody can escape that. Ultimately, deduction is deduction, but not immediately. It will be given as deduction in 5 equal installments on cash basis. In other words, payment actually should be done, not just provision. A provision for voluntary retirement compensation, no deduction like that. Really, the payment should have happened. Whatever the amount of payment happened, that will be eligible for 5 equal installments deduction under section 35 DDA. So that is voluntary retirement compensation. You have to keep this in mind. We are talking about employer point of view, the business point of view. For them it is expenditure, naturally yes. It should be allowed as deduction, yes. But instead of giving it deduction in one shot, the law says under section 35 DDA, you claim it as deduction on actual amount whatever is paid, but not one shot. You claim it in 5 equal annual installments. That's it. Then the other logic will be always the same. Sir, what happens in between 5 years if amalgamation happened, demerger happened? No problem. No problem. The successor will continue to claim the deduction later installments. Not again starting from zero, no. If already 2 installments deduction is claimed, remaining 3 installments deduction the successor will claim. If already 4 installments deduction is claimed, 1 more installment can be claimed by the successor, whatever the situation may be. When amalgamation, demerger, reorganization or succession of business happens, the successor can be continuing the deduction under section 35 DDA for the remaining installments. That is same logic as applicable even for 35D also, because the deduction here is not in 1 year, because the deduction is in 5 installments, 5 years. Somewhere in these 5 years period, if something else happens, business reorganizations or something else happens, the successor should not be punished. To be fair, with the successor, the deduction can continue to be claimed by the successor by both section 35D also, 35DDA also. That is the 35 series in a nutshell. 35 scientific research, 35 AD specified business, 35 CCA, CCC, CCD. Special things are there. You remember those things. Poverty eradication, rural development, agricultural extension project, skill development, blah blah blah. Those are all 35 series. Then 35D is very important. That is related to preliminary expenses. And 35 DDA is related to voluntary retirement scheme compensation, eligible in 5 equal installments to the SSC who has actually paid that compensation to his employees. That is 35 series. Now coming to very important section, the next one. This is a 36 series. 36 has so many deductions. So when the lawmakers started with 30, they started with one by one. Okay, let us take building first. Okay, let us take plant and machinery furniture first, then depreciation, then gone. Then they could not understand. Then they started with variety things, 35 AD, etc. They started. Then they understood it is not possible to really give all deductions. So we'll give us general deduction under 37, which will come to it later. But before that, as a last resort, before going to 37 and generalizing all the deductions, they wanted to list down certain deductions, specific deductions we can call them, specified by law. The law has specifically made clear that these are allowed as deduction. What are those things? We start with one important one, that is interest on borrowed capital. So don't take this paid as a literal meaning. Interest on borrowed capital we can call it. Interest is interest, expenditure, that's all. What are the conditions? Common sense things. 36, 37, very logical. Many things to be remembered. Most of them are done. 36 and 37 are just logical things. Of course, there are certain twist points that we should separately remember. But in general, the deduction itself is quite logical. Interest on borrowed capital. Should it be allowed as deduction? Sir, of course it is allowed as deduction. It is revenue expenditure. It is allowed as deduction. That's it. But special cases will come. In those special cases, how to treat, we will see that. First condition is SC must have borrowed capital, naturally. The money so borrowed must have been used for the purpose of business, not personal purposes. Second condition. Third condition, interest is paid or payable on such borrowing. So there is no need that it has to be paid only. It can be paid also or payable also. Of course, it will be required to be paid under 43B if that interest is payable to banks. We will come to that later. Those deductions which are eligible only on payment basis. There are certain particular cases. But 36 does not specify that it has to be compulsorily paid. It can be paid also, payable also to anybody else. So that is about general thing. Very common sense. When you say interest on borrowed capital, that itself says that there is borrowed capital. Of course, that has to be used for business. Of course, there should be interest on that. Then only we call about interest on borrowed capital. That is allowed as deduction. No problem. That is allowed as deduction. And certain special points are there here which have to be noted. For example, discount on zero coupon bonds. ZCB here means zero coupon bonds. Zero coupon means zero interest. In America, interest is called as coupon. Interest rate is called as coupon rate, because mostly the financial markets follow the American terminology. Zero coupon bond means zero interest bond. What is the nature of that bond? Let us say if the face value of that bond is 100 rupees, it will be sold at 20 rupees. Means almost 80% discount it will be sold at. So what? It will not get any interest. After some years, whatever the number of years, let us say 20 years or 15 years, the redemption value will be 100 rupees. So the purchaser will give 20 rupees to the company, he will get 100 rupees after n number of years. How many years? We don't know. Whatever that number of years, that is life of the bond. But the point is, what is the difference between these two? Is that 80 rupees not interest? Is it not interest? Of course it is interest. So the discount that is there on zero coupon bond has to be amortized over the period of the bond. So what is the interest here in this case? Whatever that 80 divided by n number of years, that will be treated as interest, which is claimed as deduction by the company which has issued the zero coupon bond. Don't think from the investor point of view. We are talking about issuer. Because issuer got only 20 now, he has to pay 100 later after so many years. Whatever the discount at which he has issued, that can be amortized. Amortized means it can be claimed as deduction. But how much amount? Whatever that discount amount is, divided by number of years, the period of the bond, it will be amortized for. That is a special case, not a normal case. And this is an important MCQ, definitely possible question. Logic is simple. Discount means face value minus issue price divided by number of years. That is the allowable deduction. Second, interest on loan used for payment of income tax is not allowed as deduction. This is a variety thing, but what we can do, the law says so, the judges say so, court says so, what we can do. Interest on loan, and that loan is taken for what? Payment of income tax. And that interest is not allowed as deduction. We cannot say why and all. It is not allowed as deduction, not allowed as deduction. I don't see any logic in that, but still, that's fine. Why the hell they should care? Why we take loan and why we have paid interest on that? It should not have mattered, but still, we can't help it. If the loan is taken for the purpose of payment of income tax, how anybody is going to identify that first of all? That itself is difficult, but still, again, as I said, it is not possible to really identify those things. Provision says that this becomes a bit for us, a question for us, 1 mark for us. So we don't have to debate about it. Better than that is to just accept and move on. What is that? Interest on loan taken for the purpose of payment of income tax, not allowed as deduction. Now another question comes, what about interest on loan taken for payment of GST? That is allowed as deduction. So these are the 2 points you should remember in the problem solving. If interest is paid on the loan that is taken for payment of income tax, it is not allowed as deduction. If the same loan is taken for payment of GST, any interest on that loan is allowed as deduction. Then the other one we already know, same with income from house property logic also. Interest paid outside India or to a non-resident without deducting TDS is disallowed, always. Always that is disallowed, even same like the income from house property provision, disallowance. So here also the same thing applies, logic is same. If interest is paid outside India or to a non-resident without TDS, then entire amount of interest that is paid, so though it is a real expenditure, though it is actually a genuine expenditure, still it is disallowed. So it becomes a responsibility of the payer to TDS, to cut the TDS before he pays any interest to anybody outside India or to a non-resident. And interest on loan used for payment of dividend, these are all court cases actually. Is it allowed? Yes, it is allowed. Interest on loan used for granting interest-free loans to employees. So company is taking loan and it is paying interest. In turn, what it is doing with that money it is giving interest-free loans to its own employees. Should it be allowed as deduction? Court said yes, it should be allowed as deduction. Brokerage and commission for arranging loan is part and parcel of interest. So that also should be treated as interest. Arrangement fees you can call it. That is also allowed as deduction under this section 36(1)(3). But what is not allowed as deduction is notional interest, which we know that. For example, interest on capital to the proprietor. That is disallowed. So only disallowed things, if you remember, remaining things you can generally understand and remember also. Interest on loan taken for payment of income tax, not allowed. Notional interest, not allowed. Interest paid outside India or to a non-resident without TDS, not allowed. That's all. Remaining interests are all allowed. Even if loan is taken for payment of GST, such interest is allowed. Loan is taken for payment of dividend, loan is taken for granting interest-free loans to the employees, all of them interests are allowed. Brokerage commission, arrangement fees are part and parcel of the interest, so they are also allowed as deduction. That is about interest on borrowed capital under section 36(1)(3). Then the other 3 points are also once again logical points which we know already. For example, if loan is taken for acquiring the assets, what should we do? Naturally, any interest for the period prior to the commencement of business shall be capitalized. Capitalized means it should be added to the cost of the asset. Already we discussed then, discussing about 43(1), actual cost of asset. Same thing. But not only prior to commencement of business, even interest for the period after commencement of business but before the asset is put to use, that also shall be capitalized. So, whatever interest prior to commencement or whatever it is, if any interest is paid on the loan or borrowing that is used for acquiring assets, interest related to the period prior to that asset being put to use shall be always capitalized. So we don't need 2 points for that, both are put together, 1 point only. Anything that is interest related to the borrowing for the acquisition of asset before that asset is put to use shall be capitalized. It means that interest amount should be added to the cost of asset. So what happens to the interest later on, after the asset is put to use? Naturally that becomes revenue expenditure. So it is allowed as deduction under the same section what we are talking, 36(1)(3). That's all. These are various aspects related to 35 series, and 36 only we started with one deduction. We'll discuss some more deductions under section 36 also, and 37 general deductions also in the next session. And as far as the provisions so far discussed are concerned, you need to be, as usual, very thorough with them. Read them carefully. Each and every word sometimes can be very, very important. And application of these provisions also will be tested for solving the problems, which we will do in the coming sessions. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.